Hi there, I'm Peter Millard and this is 10 Minute Workshop, where 10 minutes in the workshop is never enough. In the workshop this week we're taking a break from thinking about gifts for other people and we're going to come up with another dozen or so gift ideas for you. It's coming up next. Now if you've seen my toolbox tour video that I did a few months back, you may well have seen some of these tools already because they do feature in that before, but there's around about an even dozen or so, and certainly not all of them have been in that. First up is a Japanese folding pocket saw. These are incredibly useful, very handy, comes with a Japanese toothed blade, so very sharp. The handle actually folds all the way back, so you can use it like a floorboard saw, so it goes all the way down to the floor and still get space for your hands in there. This particular one is the only one I've found of this type. Comes from Axminster Tools and Machinery, and the beauty of this is that they do interchangeable blades for it, so as well as getting blades with a different number of teeth and pitch, you also get blades for insulation, but also things like this, a little keyhole blade. Very useful if you're caught out on a job without a jigsaw. That's gotten me out of a scrape a number of times. Next up, sometimes you don't just need to cut wood, you need to cut through something else, and this is something that I've had for a while now. I've got to confess, this is a Milwaukee handle that takes a reciprocating saw blade. Very useful for those odd little bits and pieces if you ever need to get in to cut a bit of metal or a copper pipe or something, or an old bracket out of the way. I don't know where I got this from, I've no idea, but what I do know is that you can get more readily this. This is a Bosch handle. It has space inside the handle for a couple of blades, and they just slot in place and tighten up, and that's it, locked. Very good, instant sort of hacksaw, very small, get into all those tight sort of spaces, and I'm very glad that I have mine with me in my tool bag. Next up we've got a Purdy 6-in-1 decorator's tool. I don't know what the 6 things are that a decorator might use it for. Washing a roller, you know, punching nails down, I don't know, whatever. The best part about this, as far as I'm concerned, is that the blade goes all the way through the handle and you can actually whack it with a hammer at the other end. If you do that for long enough, you'll end up with one that looks a bit like this. It's all really sort of nasty and janky and splitting apart, so I'm quite glad I've got a new one. But they are amazing, they will take an awful lot of abuse, and I find this particularly useful if I'm doing an installation where you might need to shave a little bit of plaster away from the bottom of an alcove where it sort of gets that little bit thicker. Very useful, very handy, about £6 or £7, so not expensive. And I do like mine. Next up is one that you will have seen before if you saw my toolbox tour. It's the little Blue Point ratchet handle. Now this is fantastic for, this is basically a little sort of 1/4 inch hex socket handle, and you can take a standard Phillips or Posi bit in that. I find this really useful for sometimes you just need to get a screw into somewhere, or more often get one out where it's been put in and then something else put in afterwards, so your access is really hard. You can get the bit in there and just wind it out 1/4 of a turn at a time. Now again, a bit like the Milwaukee blade handle, I don't know where I got this from. I've linked to one in the description below, and that actually has low profile bits as well, so it'll actually be even thinner than this when you come to use it, so I'll probably get myself one of those as well. Very useful, do not want to be without it. It's the sort of thing you're not going to use very often, but when you need it, you need it. Next up I've got a Fluke volt stick or volt alert. Again, we're not electricians, but sooner or later if you do installations you're going to hit, or hopefully not hit, come across an electrical cable. You'll want to know if it's live or not. This will tell you without stripping the cable back, without getting to one end with a tester screwdriver, any of that nonsense. Just offer this up to the cable and it'll tell you audibly and with a flashing light whether that cable is live or not. These are about £20. You can get cheaper versions of this. I'll just remind you, you're trying to find out whether that cable has 240 volts running through it or not. I'll pay the 20 quid and get a branded one. Thank you very much. Next thing we have is a this is actually not a Fluke one. Fluke do make these, but this is a socket tester. Really simple, really basic little thing. You shove it in a socket, switch the socket on, and you get a couple of lights lighting up, and critically with this one, also a little buzzer that sets off to show you that it's live. Now, they're really useful, not just for testing a socket, but also occasionally you'll need to cut the power to a circuit. You just pop that in. Because it's got an audible signal, when you kill the power, the buzzer goes off. Critically, you can leave that in the socket, and if any muppet switches the power back on, you'll know about it quickly. Next up, we've got a bit of health and safety type stuff. Ear defenders. These are 3M Peltor Optim 3s. These have an SNR, a single number something. It's not signal to noise ratio. Single number reference, that's the one, of 35. So these are obviously over ear defenders, you know, comme ça. These are for prolonged and continuous use in very noisy environments. You see guys at airports on airside wear these. If you're not in an environment with continuously loud sounds, and hopefully you're not, then I use these guys. These are Moldex 6810 in-ear ear defenders. They have this little Alice band thing. You screw those in nice and tight and you get an SNR of 27. So obviously not as effective as the over-ear ear defenders, but much more convenient to take on and off throughout the day. And you've probably seen me using these if you've watched any of my previous videos. These are about £2.50 a pair, well worth the money. The 3M Peltor Optims are about £20 a pair. So again, you know, much cheaper than hearing aids, let's put it that way. Lastly, when it comes to sort of personal protection, I've got a pair of just cheap nylon-backed grippy gloves. If you buy enough of these, you can get them down to about 60 pence a pair. I mean, incredibly reasonable. They're not super strong, they're not super grippy, but they do provide a level of protection far greater than you get from, say, a pair of rubber gloves. If I've found that if I've been hand sanding, for example, I can actually wear my fingerprints down enough to the point where I can't unlock my phone with my thumbprint anymore. Wear a pair of gloves and you won't have that problem. As I say, down to 60 or 70 pence a pair. I've linked to a box of a dozen, I think, which gets them down to that sort of price. Since we're talking about personal protection, a sort of environment, the other thing that I've done this year, which has made such a huge difference to me, is to put in my LED lights, my LED panels. They have made a tremendous difference to the way I work. All told, it was a couple of £100 at most to put these in. If you've got a workshop and you're not using LED lights yet, put these in. They will make a world of difference to your environment and to how you work. And lastly, lots of people ask me about this, and I'm going to have to go a little bit further back. But lots of people ask about my work trousers. Yeah, basic sort of work pants. These are Tough Stuff Extreme 700s. They have sort of nail pockets and phone pockets and all that other sort of stuff. Cordura pockets for knee pads and Cordura around the trim around the bottom. So they're really very hard wearing. I pay about £30 a pair for these. So they're pretty good value compared to some of the other sort of Swedish makes, Black Lada and those sort. They're kind of 80, 90 quid a pair for work trousers. No, just not going to happen. it's a bit like damning with faint praise. These are the least worst work trousers I've ever found. They're really good. I really like them, but certainly in the price bracket that I'm shopping in, they're absolutely the best I've found. But overall, there are so many things wrong with them. I do recommend them thoroughly. And hey, let me put this out there. If anybody from Tough Stuff is watching this, I would welcome the opportunity to have a chat with you about some of the design decisions that you're making for workwear. I don't understand your thought process at all, I'm afraid. It's just baffling. I'd love to have a chat with you. I will check all weaponry at the door. It'll just be talking. These overall are fantastic, but not without issues. As I say, I could do a whole video. I could probably do a whole series about workwear actually, because some of these design decisions just are baffling. Let me show you just one. So cargo pocket on the left hand leg, zip fastening and Velcro. Why? I think that's supposed to be a phone pocket. That's the size of my phone. I mean, seriously? So yeah, that's just one of a list of like a laundry list of sort of slightly bewildering, baffling, bizarre design decisions that seem to be taking place sort of on our behalf. As I say, anyone from Tough Stuff or any other workwear manufacturer, I'd welcome the opportunity to have a chat with you about this, because it's just baffling to me. However, that said, proper workwear, proper work trousers, worth their weight in gold, really. It's the 21st century equivalent of the woodworker's apron, But these kind of trousers are fantastic. Lots of pockets, lots of space for stuff. And I do recommend these despite their shortcomings. So that's it for our more or less even dozen gift ideas for you for this shopping list coming up to Christmas. As always, links to everything in the video description down below. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've drawn some inspiration from it. Thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, share it out amongst your friends, and do consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Or hey, just check back on a Friday when there's always something new up at noon. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care.